So sorry, it just takes me a moment to set a few things up, but you'll see I have some sheep with me, which I had to bring along for Good Shepherd Sunday. Um, I also have some stuffed sheep, but I didn't bring them today. And before I begin, I just want to let you know that I will be showing two video clips during the homily today. So for those who are with us by phone, you will hear the audio of those video clips, but you won't be able to see. And so I'm sorry for that. For those of you who do have internet at home, I'm happy to share those video clips later on. So just let me know. We'll try to help you understand what's happening in them if it's not obvious from the audio. So it's good to be with you this Good Shepherd Sunday. Well, I'm really not the biggest fan of being compared to a sheep. It is not the most favorable or flattering human-animal comparison, really. And so I've always been a bit resistant to the Bible's prolific Good Shepherd imagery. I'd much rather identify as a shepherd than as a sheep when it comes right down to it. And so I'm quite reluctant to picture myself being as helpless and needy as sheep tend to be. Because of this resistance, I'm not sure I've ever preached on a Good Shepherd passage. I've certainly told shepherd and sheep stories to children. In fact, I have a small flock of plush sheep that I've used for storytelling in the past. And children love all things sheep-related, especially anything involving stuffed sheepies. One time I forgot what baby sheep were called in the middle of telling a Bible story, and I ended up calling them sheeplets. And I never lived that one down with those children. Now, the thing that children love most about the Good Shepherd stories is something not contained in today's gospel reading. Children really love when the Good Shepherd goes in search of the one lost sheep. Because children have a much easier time than adults do realizing that they sometimes get lost and that they need help being found. Children are much more in tune with these sorts of deep primal needs and vulnerabilities of the human person. We adults, on the other hand, want to be independent, self-sufficient, even heroically autonomous. We try our hardest not to get lost, and we try to amass tools to help us when we do. Perhaps most of all, we try to accumulate money. Money can help us get out of all kinds of pickles. When we have plenty of money, we tend not to need other people quite as much. And so money becomes a very important part of our quest to not truly need other people in so many cases, or to only need them selectively and intermittently and on our own terms. Not only do most of us resist imagining ourselves as sheep then, but we're also not quite sure how to imagine relating to a shepherd. In our gospel passage today, we are told that sheep know their shepherd's voice, and that the shepherd goes ahead of the sheep whenever they are moving to greener pastures. The sheep know and trust the shepherd's voice, and they follow. We are not, however, particularly comfortable with the whole idea of being followers. The language of following connotes, for many of us, a dangerous sort of mindless obedience, doing whatever we're told, not being an independent, creative thinker. Indeed, this kind of following is the antithesis of what most of us have been striving for most of our lives. And yet, as independent as we may think we are, I want to invite you to consider the possibility that everyone follows something. We all have some kind of God. And so the better question really is, what kind of God do we follow? And what kind of God is worth following? For me, Jesus is a particularly good shepherd to follow because Jesus isn't interested primarily in our obedience, as are so many other gods. Rather, what sheep experience in relationship to their shepherd is something very much like trust. And of course, for us humans, trust can end up feeling a great deal like love. I can't help but respond with delight then at witnessing sheep respond to their shepherd, as happens in this short video clip. You'll see a few different people trying to call the sheep and it just isn't working. And then finally their shepherd calls them and they are on the move. So let's watch it together.
One more time.
Oh, one is.
Louder!
Tika, 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 tika! Tika, 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 tika! Tika, tika! Tika, 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 tika!
Look at them, look at them. Isn't that amazing?
They're coming. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe this. Oh my God. This is nice. Oh my God. This is amazing. One more.
You scared them.
Yeah, Eunice made him go away.
Oh my God.
Was that cool or what?
Oh my God.
You will never have the same again.
Oh my God. I can't believe the way they were coming.
So perhaps then it's less about shepherds leading and sheep following and more about a mutual relationship, at least as Jesus is using the image. A relationship with one who eternally has our best interest in mind and heart. Shepherds and their sheep spend a good deal of time together, and sheep learn to trust their shepherd. Likewise, we are invited to spend a good deal of time with Jesus and to learn to trust him as well. And even more than that, we are invited to do so in the company of our herd, of a community. We don't learn to trust Jesus alone. We learn to trust him in the company of others, which is part of what has made the last 2 months so hard. We feel as lost without our herd as we would without a shepherd. This inability to gather in the flesh is largely unprecedented in modern human history. We may not feel that we are making history in these long days of isolation, but we really are in a way. This is something really new, and it's something truly difficult for each of us in different ways. If you're anything like me, you'll have encountered a multitude of available fixes for the mental, spiritual, and emotional difficulties brought on by living through these strange days and nights. The internet is overrun with ways to optimize quarantine, as well as ways to process our grief and our loss and our fear. But many of these supposed fixes can still leave us feeling empty, sad, lonely. They don't deliver what they promise, because what we most need is not better technique, but rather a better relationship. A relationship with the one through whom all things were made. Yet so many of us find a relationship with Jesus difficult to establish, difficult to nurture, difficult to even begin to comprehend. I wrote a bit in this week's newsletter about the art of contemplative prayer, the practice of being with Jesus, which is the very bedrock of relationship. Being with, spending time, paying good attention. so simple and yet so challenging. I'd like to share another video clip now. It obviously comes from someone with a more evangelical perspective on faith than most of us. But it is also quite a beautiful meditation on the power of being with a community and being with God, and also, incidentally, being with sheep. Let's watch.
There's a saying where I'm from that one healthy family can influence 12 others. This saying has been motivation for me since the first day I arrived in this village. Growing up, I had never seen a village with my own eyes. So when God moved my family out of the city into this village, I felt like a foreigner in a foreign land. When I arrived, I asked myself, how do people live and what do they do for a living? Most of the people are shepherds or farmers. And so to make a living, I've learned how to raise a sheep. I choose to buy the skinny, weak sheep, the ones nobody wants. I take them home, heal them, and make them strong. Being a shepherd has given me better understanding of men and of God. I've seen that sheep are truly social creatures. Every sheep needs a herd. People are the same. They need to be surrounded by a strong community. My sheep are dependent on me for constant water and food, just as I am dependent on God to provide for all my needs. What is a sheep without a shepherd? It's lost. In my village, there are many problems. Families in my community struggle with the alcohol addiction, domestic abuse, and broken homes. These are problems that can't be solved by themselves. They can only be solved with God's help. I believe that my simple task as someone's neighbor is to lead them to something that can help them with their problems. Here, it is not popular to go to church. In my church, men have lost their teeth because of their faith. My biggest fear is that one day I will lose heart and give up. But I pray that God will give me perseverance and opportunities with my neighbors. The other day, my neighbor came to me needing help to heal his sheep. I was able to share with him Psalm 23, saying that God is our shepherd. We are his sheep. He looks after us, and we can trust him. Today, a neighbor brought us a watermelon, and I was reminded how God provides. Though I once felt like a foreigner here, now I feel like a neighbor among neighbors. I can say that with God's help, I'm now a villager.
So, imagining Jesus as the Good Shepherd. It seemed hard for me just a day or so ago when I began writing today's homily, but having gotten over myself just a little bit, I can find a capacity to yearn for this relationship. I can locate a deep hunger for this kind of mutuality, this kind of safety, this kind of care. We could all use a little bit of shepherding right about now, couldn't we? So let's spend some time getting better acquainted with the Good Shepherd in the weeks ahead. And let's report back to our herd on what we discover about the one who is always, always leading us home. May it be so. Amen. At this time, I will invite John to introduce our choral anthem.